Ha and welcome. Hopefully we can be heard. Happy Halloween. I'm here with a monster, a crazy clown. And who are you?
Clown world is in control.
Oh my gosh. So welcome to your November forecast. This is going to be fun. If you can't tell, I'm trying to be a little cat here, which I think is cute. The Cheshire cat. It's fitting for what we're going through right now, right? What do you think, Mr. Clown? Crazy clown.
Clown world is in control.
Clown world is in control, and I decided not to be a clown, but I would be a Cheshire cat. So you get to talk to us today. We're going to have fun on this show today. We're going to talk about the astrology that's coming up for November, of course. I'm also going to pull some tarot cards that might relate to the astrology coming up. I actually thought about being a gypsy, but I was like, that's too close to reality that it wouldn't work. So I got to be a kitty. Just wearing, flowy skirts or whatever. So yeah. Anyway, if you guys don't know us, I'm Starlene. This is Metheny. We do these monthly podcasts for the upcoming astrology, and this is our month for November. And yeah, so we are using a different streaming service. I believe that Mark will not be texting as me this time. I think last month he was doing it somehow magically under my name, but I think it's going to be working correctly. And so, yeah, it'll be fun. So, Mr. Mark, Mr. Crazy Clown, tell me what is your thing about this month that's going to be like the pinnacle of fun? Maybe fun as a sarcastic fun, because I know there's a lot of heavy energies out there.
Yeah, I think there's so many things going on. Like there's not one big overriding thing. Um, I think what we're looking at is like in the middle of the month, there's a ton of uh, Sun, Venus making aspects to the outer planets in quick succession, and then there's a Mercury retrograde at the end of the month, and then we end up with the Mercury goes retrograde at the end of the month, and then Mars goes retrograde. I guess that's early December. I guess it is when Mars goes retrograde, but yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of confusion and things happening. I know everyone wants to be past. Yeah.
Everyone wants to be what?
I think everyone wants to be past November 5th, but I don't think that's going to be over. Oh my God.
On November 5th.
Yeah.
So okay, we'll get into that. We don't have to get into that right away because I think that's a really good topic for us to talk about because we are going into election season. And of course, I'm sure there are people that watch that are not necessarily in the United States, but it does affect everybody, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that as we go on. But is there something that makes you feel like specific?
Yeah, I guess I did. I missed the big thing, I guess. So November 19th is when Pluto enters Aquarius, like for good, for the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the biggest energy for certain. So the fact that that's 2 weeks after the election, I think kind of shows that everything's not going to be settled at that point. So after, we've been through 16 years of Pluto and Capricorn. We've got, but just under just barely under 3 weeks left. So I think that's going to be the big turning point. And Pluto enters Aquarius on the November 19th, which is a Tuesday, and that's in the afternoon that happens. So that's definitely the biggest energy of the month. And then the other stuff I'd said, all the inner planets making aspects to the outer planets in the middle of the month.
Right. That's a crazy. It's kind of a I mean, I know they don't change the election dates, but it's weird how it syncs up with the changes of Pluto moving into another sign, and that doesn't happen all the time. For people that don't know, Pluto moves a sign once every 20 something years. Is that right? I can't remember and I know it's different depending on what sign it is.
Yeah, it's 16 to 20 years.
Okay. So I knew it was Yeah, so I mean, this is like a once in a while kind of thing. It only moves a few times in our lifetime, depending on how long we live, of course. But it's interesting because. Go ahead.
How about that? The color changes when we're talking.
That's
So I think one of the interesting things too is I believe this is going to be. It's been at least a few hundred years, but I think this may be about the only time when the presidential election has had Pluto in one sign, and then the inauguration day, which is January 20th, Pluto's actually in a different sign than it was on election day. So I think that kind of adds to the chaos.
I didn't even think about that. And collectively with Pluto and Capricorn, what would you say Pluto and Capricorn is collectively doing to us? we can start there, because I think you need to know where you're from to know where you're going.
Right. So definitely the last, let's say, 4.5 years, let's say since 2020. I mean, Pluto in the last few degrees of Capricorn has made so many severe aspects that I think that it's the tearing down and restructuring of the power structure of our country, as I think how that's played, like, everything just from financially and how business is done, just like everything is even if it's not died, it's underwent a death, rebirth, transformation, Pluto thing. I don't think. I mean, I can't think of anything in my life or surroundings that has been untouched in certainly the last 4 years. I mean, even just the last several months, I think just Pluto digs down to the root cores and root issues and kind of makes you reevaluate things and where you're at, and what's important to you, and that kind of thing. And this is going to be ongoing, but I think seriously, clown world is in control at this point. It's every day there's just so many crazy things all day long, every day, that like it's hard to even, like, you have to just look at it as you have to just view it and not like get emotionally attached to it, because it's just a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, I agree. I think that no matter where you sit in the political sphere, that everybody's tense and uptight. This happens all the time when we go through our, political shifts. But this time it seems interesting because the idea of what we're going through collectively, we've been through all of the past 4 years, that everybody was affected by, and there's so much tension that's gone on, and so many people have just been at each other's throats and lost friendships and let go of things in their life that they, just because of the political stuff. I think it's doing what the collective, I would say, if you will, the collective group of people that run things probably would rather have us fighting with each other than figuring things out better, because when we're fighting with each other, then we're not actually, trying to solve problems. We're just arguing or whatever. And I think that's really important for us all to remember when we are, not actually looking for a solution to things. And then we're just using our energy in a way that's not helpful. I think that's important to look at the reasoning, the situation, the people, like what are the topics, what are the things that are going to make things better. That's where I think the focus should be. And the focus has been so much on slinging mud. Does it seem to you the same, that there's more mudslinging than there's ever been with this? Like, I mean, on both sides seem to sling mud to each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's restructured how we communicate and who we communicate with, and it's especially like this is the third time now that Pluto's been at 29 Capricorn. They keep dipping into Aquarius, rating back, and so I think it's dislodged the power structures, and how we exchange information and how we communicate and things like that. It's just like it's hostile everywhere, because like everyone's frustrated with all of it, really, from top to bottom. And there's not going to be any kind of, regardless of who wins, there's not going to be this glowing magical unicorn that comes through the netherworld and magically fixes everything. I mean, it's
that's unfortunately that's the way.
We've still got a year and a half, really, of this cycle, kind of, that ends spring 2026 is kind of when we really like shift over into the new reality, or whatever you want to call it. So there's still lots of things that will have to be sorted out between now and then. But yeah,
that's understandable. Hey, Christina. So yeah, I agree. And I think let's dig into this. Let's start looking at what the transits are coming up, because that's what we're going to talk about, our transits, what's coming up. And we're going to talk about potentials of what could be happening. So we have a lot coming up, even in the beginning of November, the very start of it. November 2nd, Mercury trines to Mars. That can be hot communication. Mercury sextiles Pluto. Go ahead.
And that's like, so that Mercury Mars trine is at 29 degrees of water signs. So actually there's a water grand trine at that point, because Neptune's at like 27.5 of Pisces. So there's Mercury, Mars, and Neptune in a water grand trine at that point.
So is this isn't the grand trine though? Is it because there's Mercury sextile Pluto? So that's additional than the grand trine. What, right? Because a sextile wouldn't be at the trine.
Yeah, but I mean, Neptune's at 27.5 Pisces, so
Yeah.
Mercury, Mars, Neptune,
Right.
and then so Pluto is sextile to Neptune, and there's the water grand trine, and also, I mean, Uranus is at 26 Taurus. Should know that. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are all making aspects to each other, and that's some of the. I think some people are expecting. So Uranus is retrograde. It's just a couple minutes under 26 Taurus, but still that's 26, 27, and 29. I mean, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are all an aspect to each other. So I think that's part of it. I'm seeing some confusion from people about just like when Pluto leaves Capricorn, but like that those three outer planets, when they're all an aspect like that, that's like a total changing and restructuring and changing the collective mindset of everyone, because they're orchestrating together.
So one of the things that I always look at, and I know you look at them too, I'm just telling others, is midpoints. So when we have two midpoints, a midpoint is just two planets on the zodiac wheel. It's a spot in between the two planets. So when you have a third planet at that middle spot or opposite chart of the middle spot, call that a midpoint, a direct midpoint structure. And that direct midpoint structure is powerful. So I was actually looking at the midpoints. I like to look at them when I look at transits because they really do speak volumes. And on the second, which I think is interesting, we have a midpoint with Pluto in the middle, opposite of Saturn and Venus midpoint. So Saturn and Venus, and then Pluto in the middle. So we have that. We also have Neptune in the middle, and that's exact, right? Then we also have Neptune in the middle of the Uranus-Pluto at 19 minutes. That's going to be for a long time because they move slowly. And then we also have Neptune in the middle of Mercury-Mars. So I think this just reinforces what Mark is talking about, how this kind of chaotic, and these are going to last depending on which one we're talking about, but they're going to last for some time. So it just kind of adds to a little bit of unclarity that's going on. So I guess suggestions that might be helpful, and that's always helpful, is minding what you're thinking, what you're seeing, and if you're feeling like you're not clear about something, it's okay to say, I need a minute to think about it. So I think that's really important, especially now, and trying to keep yourself grounded these first couple of days, especially even leading up to, what did you say, the middle of the month. It's probably the best thing for us to do in trying how to figure out to maneuver through this, because if it's not you, it's someone else, and that someone else might be affecting you. So just wanted to share that, because I was looking at the midpoints too, just leading up to the election, and they seem severe. I mean, they really do. And it's not just, but they seem super severe. There's just a lot going on. So, yeah. Hi, Occult Examiner. Thank you for joining us. We're happy you're here. So this first particular day that we're talking about, well, November 2nd, is there something about it? I know it's kind of triggering that grand trine, but isn't there a second grand trine that's going on too? Maybe I'm thinking of something else. I'd have to go look at it. That's okay. Well, we can move on to November 3rd.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on November 3rd too. So November 2nd, we just went over. November 3rd, Mars opposite Pluto at 29 Cancer. So here we are again. These 29s are getting whacked. Heavy duty. Yeah, they're getting whacked. And Mars opposite Pluto seems like a war, an argument, not a nice feeling, because it will bring things out from the deep. and like if it's not you, it's someone else. You make sure you're just in a good space. What do you think about this November 3rd?
Yeah, I mean, that throws, you know, Mars and Mercury in with the three outers. So this
Mm-hmm.
is really, I mean, you've kind of got a five planet um, fixture there with Mercury, Mars, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. So, I mean, 29 degrees of any planet in any sign is going to be transformation. So, I mean, it's, and Pluto kind of works at the soul level. And the typical Mars opposite Pluto is violence, fighting against the power structure, fighting against a force bigger than you. Um, and then too with like the Venus Jupiter opposition, that shows kind of weighing out your resources. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's going to be a big thing is solidifying your infrastructure and your resources and making sure that you're able to take care of your immediate needs is how I think a lot of that plays out. And back to the Mars Pluto opposition for a second. I mean, so Pluto, so actually all the outers, especially like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, is something bigger than you that you're having to fight against. So that's kind of like what the Mars Pluto opposition is how do you solidify your structure when like everything else is like chaos and falling apart. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when I say, it's fine to view the big things, but I would not get too emotionally attached because it's just going to be uh, things are just going to be bouncing up and down, back and forth, and we may not know the end results of a lot of the things going on in for a good while.
Right. Right. And that's always good advice. And Mars opposite Pluto could be a power struggle of sorts, right? You said that, and especially Cancer, Capricorn. The trope of Cancer is they're sweet and lovely, but I don't agree with that all the time. The energy of Cancer can be very fiercely protective. Of course it can be. It's the mother, the energy of the moon. I mean, and the moon isn't necessarily always good. It's just the energy of something. So, Cancer can be very protective, especially if triggered. The Venus opposite Jupiter can have a good energy there that can bring something nice into it, but it's still going to be a difficult time in this early part of November. I think it's good to keep yourself in a good headspace and around the right people. So, where does the peak of that grand trine you were talking about? Would that be like the first of the month? Because I think maybe I should pull a couple cards for that, and like maybe we can talk about a card or two that we can look at for that particular grand trine. Is it the very beginning of the month? Okay. So, someone mentioned in one of the chats that let me go back there. Sorry, this is new. I'm learning how to work this. That grand trines are powerful, and that you don't have any in your chart, but your daughter does, and it's water and fire. Ooh, yeah. Grand trines are they want to flow, and if the flow isn't there, there's a struggle within the context of something. So that's what my thought of a grand trine does there. But yeah,
and I would say too that cancer, the cancer energy, I think likes to be warm and sweet and loving, but when it feels attacked or unsettled, I think they can be the most voracious defender of it, of their home
mhm,
that there is. So,
mhm,
again, the symbol for cancer is the crab, and
mhm.
it'll, the crab moves side to side. It can be kind of passive aggressive, but if you directly attack it, then you get the claws, the pinchers come out.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, and I agree with you. Cancer can be very protective, and that that is not easy. So I threw 3 tarot cards. I'll show them to you guys. So this is the I think it's called the New Vision Tarot. This is the first one, Empress. Empress is holding yourself. This would be a Cancer energy too. The Empress, holding yourself still, calmness in the face of difficulty. And then there is also the 8 of Swords, which is being blindfolded and held together against, kind of like against your will. If you're feeling like a little bit like you can't do something about something, just know that you will eventually be free. I think the birds in this particular deck are showing that there is freedom beyond what that binds you. So if you're feeling bound and like you can't do something, your quiet stillness, which is the Queen, the Empress, sorry, here will help you maneuver through that. I also do see that there could be emotional turmoil going on in the very beginning here. This is more, the 3 of Swords is more emotional turmoil. There's something that feels heavy. I mean, look at this card. It's got, a heart with 3 swords in it. So it's talking about like keeping yourself balanced. I threw 3 cards because I thought 3, the grand trine that we're talking about here, might be a good thing to think about. And I feel like the answer to whatever you're going through at this time, whether you're feeling bound up and you're not being heard, giving yourself space to reflect and kind of open up your heart to see what is it that you want to pursue and move forward from, and then really moving when you get that trigger, instead of pushing yourself to a point where you're not really comfortable or happy moving. But I feel like the grand trine can give motivation too. I mean, Mars there is always the trigger to movement, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, Mars is actual and instinctual behavior.
Yeah.
It's kind of Mars is kind of your animal self.
And I take off my sweater, I feel like warm. So I also, when I interviewed Joni Patrice, does a lot of forecasting stuff, and she said that Mars is what triggers things and makes things activate, and that really resonated with me, because I can see that looking at the transits. That's definitely something Mars can trigger, an event. So did you mention about Mars entering Leo, what that might be for all of us?
So that's one of the major movements of this Mars transit. But Mars usually stays in a sign for 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of September, Mars entered Cancer, but then when we get into December, Mars is going to be in Leo by then. It's going to go retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually going to have just short of 9 months where Mars is only in Cancer or Leo. Because it's going to go into Leo, retrograde back through a bunch of Cancer, and then go direct. And it's the middle of next year before Mars enters Virgo. So if you have Cancer or Leo placements, Mars is going to go over those spots probably multiple times. So it's going to be, and that kind of plays into the election stuff, in that most of the candidates have Cancer or Leo placements, which will be affected over the next, like, where are we at? This is almost, tomorrow's November 1st. So yeah, like the next 6 months, Mars is going to be hitting in their charts.
And I mean, the United States also has Cancer in their chart too, right?
Yes, United States has Sun and something else in Cancer, Mercury maybe.
Yeah, so it could be like a trigger for people activating something within them. Interesting.
Yep.
All right. So that is November 3rd. We're leading up. So Scott reminded us, don't forget about the 5th. Of course, we couldn't. So leading up to the next day, the 4th. So the 4th is the day before the election. Sun trine Saturn. That can be a stabilizing force. Do you think? What do you feel about that? And is that another grind?
It can be. So we do not have a grand trine at that point. That's the Sun and Saturn are in the lower degrees of the water signs, where the previous one was at the around the like 28, 29 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So Sun trine Saturn can be a stabilizing force. But also I think it's Saturn is leadership. So I think it can be, shining the light on who could be the leadership of at this point, or at least showing that the focus is that's where people's mindset is. And yes, remember the 5th of November.
All right, and that is actually the last.
That's the poster.
Wait, say that again.
I said, hence the poster. I think that's what Scott was referring to, the Guy Fawkes, the remember the 5th of November.
Oh, that's funny.
V for Vendetta. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was so long ago that I didn't even have it in my brain again. Still. Kitty cat. What's your cat's name?
So initially it was called Tiny, and then that got modified to Tiny Terror. Currently I am calling it The Violence. That is its name, is The Violence. Because it is
The Violence. That's a funny cat name.
So for now, as it reaches for my Moldavite pendant, which cats should not play with Moldavite.
That's funny.
Most people should not play with Moldavite.
I can't keep I made this beautiful wire wrapped Moldavite pendant, and I cannot wear it. It makes me dizzy. I can't. It's sitting in my.
It's too much. It's too much energy.
It is.
If you want
too much at one time.
If you want transformation, wear your Moldavite. If you don't want things blowing up in every area of your life, then you might want to keep it on the shelf till you're ready.
Well, listen, Pluto is on my midhaven and my sun. I think I have enough transformation. I mean, do you see? I'm turning into a cat before our eyes, a Cheshire cat at that. That's funny. Okay.
Save your Moldavite for when it's needed.
So we don't have any more aspects except for moon aspects between the 4th and the 9th. So maybe we should talk about the election here. Is there anything that you're feeling like the election would be there'd be something particularly interesting to talk about with the election? Like, who do you think might win and why do you think they might win? That's an interesting question. Because it looks good for both of them and looks bad for both of them at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've looked at their charts so many times, it's insane. Like, I go, oh yeah, that's in this person's chart. That's it, because I'm so curious. I live in the United States. It would be a curiosity to most people.
Right. So I guess to I'm just going to talk and not think. So
Just do it.
like like how I'm seeing things now from try and so I don't trust any of the news media really, but I watch all of it at least a little bit because I want to see what every I I don't want to be in an echo chamber where I only watch and listen to people who exactly agree with me.
Yeah, that's important, right?
Or yeah, because I want to make sure that I'm not just like in a cult or something.
Right.
So,
Because who wants to be in a cult?
um, right, because I want to hear differing viewpoints to see what because my BS detector is pretty good. I think I tend to not agree with a good majority of everything I see with the mainstream media, pretty much. But even the people that I like and watch regularly, I don't agree with them on everything. I
Mhm.
think what the most likely scenario is that um, I think Trump probably wins, but I think by time we get to next spring, either because like the energy for election day and the energy for January 20th, which is inauguration day, are completely totally different energies.
Hmm.
And then if you progress that even a little bit further, if you look at March 20th, which is the new year, which is the astrological new year, or as I call it, the correct new year, um, there's a really crazy, insane lineup for that. Um, I would say whoever wins November 5th is not necessarily, and I mean more than like a 1 in a million chance. I'd say there's a fairly decent chance that whoever's president by March 20th of next year is somebody different than who wins on November 5th. I see challenges and whatever on from whichever side loses. I don't under any circumstances really think that this is like we're not going to wake up November 6th and we're going to know who's president and that's it and get on with your lives. I do
Hmm.
not see that happening, and astrologically the astrology does not show that happening.
Hmm.
There I think there's a wide range of things that could happen. Um, I would say that this Mars and Cancer and Leo for 9 months almost can upend anybody who comes through. Whoever's initially declared the winner is not necessarily going to still be the winner, you know, 2 to 4 months from then.
That's interesting.
That's
Is that more
that's
of
kind
an
of what I.
intuition, or is that more of a just because of the astrology that's like kind of lining up here?
That's the astrology backed up with some intuitive hits on things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So on the 20th of January, which is the not to jump ahead to January, but on the 20th of January, just to give people an idea of what might be going on, is the Sun and Pluto are conjunct each other, and they're making a semi-sextile to Saturn, and and Venus. So I really do think that my cats are going to be in the office. My cat, I know I'm being very not silly, but maybe everybody doesn't know that my cats' names are Saturn and Venus, but I'm being silly. But they are really aspecting Sun and Pluto. So, I mean, I feel like that day could potentially be, Saturn and Venus want us to find what's real, what's lasting past death, what's meaningful. They don't want Saturn and Venus don't care about superficialities. It's a connection that lasts, and it's aspecting the Sun and Pluto, right? And if the connection doesn't last, there could be turmoil, there could be difficulty. If, for instance, you're in a relationship, and we can think about ourselves as being in a relationship with our government on some level. We have to live there. There has to be some kind of energy exchange between. We pay taxes, right? So, when we think about it from that perspective, when we think about if there's problems with Saturn and Venus, when they make this aspect to each other and also are aspecting Pluto and the Sun, there is a feeling of wanting something serious. And if the serious realness isn't there, then people are going to feel a fade away, going to feel the decision to move in a different direction. So there is a lot going on just on that day. And of course, the 20th of January is the day that they're sworn into office. It's not the actual day that they're being elected, but it's interesting what you were saying, Mark, about how there's such a contrast between November 5th, which is the election day, and then the 20th, which is the day that they're sworn into office. So did you look at the chart? I'm sure you did. You looked at the January 20th chart.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so too, November 5th, Pluto's at 29 Capricorn. January 20th, it's 0 Aquarius.
Right. And it's conjunct the Sun too. So there is that, and it's making semi-squares to Venus, and it's like, oh my God. So Venus and Saturn, the reason I named my cats Venus and Saturn is because if you boil Venus and Saturn down to a energy, it's real love. It's something you're attracted to, a love that you're attracted to that's real, sincere. You can look at it from a negative perspective, like, oh, they don't like insincerity, and you can go in that direction. But obviously my little babies are my little babies, so that's why I believe they should be in office. But they will have lots of treats for everybody, I'm pretty sure that. But in reality, if you think about it from that perspective and the connection that people have to their environment, their people that they're dealing with in their government or whatnot, I think that that's a very interesting day. Hopefully it will be a calm day and not something crazy. Yeah, I'm hoping.
And so just to add on to that too, if you progress that, so the January 20th, the Sun-Pluto conjunction at 0 Aquarius, also that's the degree of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction when other things started in December of 2020.
Yep, it is. And
then if you look forward to March 20th, which is the beginning of the new year, the astrological new year for 2025, the Sun and Neptune are exactly conjunct at like 29 Pisces.
Interesting.
29 Pisces, 0 Aries.
And
so you've got 29. I'm sorry.
What day is that? When do they conjunct at 29 Pisces?
March 20th of 2025.
And that's right at 0 Aries. Yeah, right. Wow. Oh, well, very close to 0 Aries. It's 29 Pisces. It's the next
it's 20
degree.
Right, 29
wow.
Pisces. Yep. So to me, that's like Sun conjunct Neptune is definitely a shift in energy, and it's can be change, deception, be all kinds of different things with that. I mean, it can be increased spirituality also, but in general, like that's not good energy for like figuring out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a confused energy than uh, cl- than a clarity
Mm.
lineup.
Interesting. Interesting. It will be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, and where the next 4 years takes us.
Yeah, and two on inauguration day, also Neptune. So another thing that's different between election day and inauguration day is the nodes have shifted. So like on election day, the north node's in Aries, but when you go to inauguration day on January 20th, 2025, so not only is there the tight Venus-Saturn conjunction and the tight Sun-Pluto conjunction, Neptune is also conjunct the north node at,
Yeah, I see that.
they're less than a degree and a half apart,
Mm.
right? Like 28 and a half Pisces is kind of the midpoint there of, and two, there's an Earth grand trine between Uranus, Mercury, and the south node that's close to forming at that point. So there's there's a lot of things happening at that juncture.
That seems to be an interesting path of unfolding that's happening there. So we're moving out of now the election time, the election days. We're going to go back to the next time we have another aspect that is more than just the sun is on November 9th. And we have Venus square Neptune. And this again is at the Sagittarius Pisces energy. Neptune is at the very end of the zodiac, of course. And as Mark has been saying, because he's affected by this more than anybody of the two of us, it's moving, it's coming closer to the very end. But the Venus square Neptune is probably more a nice energy, wouldn't you think, than a negative energy? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it should be definitely. I mean, nicer energy. It is. Venus moves really quick, so that is kind of a quick moving energy. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I would think that like Venus square Neptune can be, putting some action into your dreams. You know, Neptune is kind of visualization and things,
Mm-hmm.
your imagination, your subconscious. So having Venus, which is also like your personal resources and your personal values. So Venus and square Neptune can kind of, on top of the like love, romance type things, it can also be kind of your values or resources shifting.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess that with the Venus is the values, right? And the Neptune is thinking about those ideal things.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll be maybe a little bit calmer for if there's any craziness going on for the election. What we move next is November 11th. Venus moves into Capricorn. So quickly, Venus moved 2 degrees in 2 days. Venus goes into Capricorn. It's probably there for about 3 weeks. And
yeah.
What do you think about Venus and Capricorn?
So Venus and Capricorn, whereas Venus and Sag is kind of more freewheeling. go with the flow. Venus in Capricorn is much more, stable, uh, pragmatic, practical.
Mm. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So
a little more frugal than Venus and Sag is.
I always thought that it's funny because, I mean, and I've seen the meme, of course, but that Christmas lands on December 25th, which is, we know that that came from the pagan holidays. But, it is on December 25th. And, Christmas is a day, at least, in the United States, a lot of people celebrate Christmas, probably all over the world, I'm sure. But, my family always did. And it's a day of giving, it's a day of kind of being frivolous and fun. And that doesn't sound very Capricorn like. If you think about it, Capricorn's more the organizer, the person that's like the overseer, the witness consciousness. That's the word I always like to use for Capricorn, because they are the witness consciousness when you see the Capricorn energy at play. I love Capricorn. I have a Capricorn moon, but it doesn't seem very Christmassy. However, so when the sun is in Capricorn, you're like, it doesn't quite make sense. But when you think about it, the sun was just prior into Sagittarius. That's more freewheeling. Hey, let's spend money. Let's go have fun. Let's do something out of the ordinary. Let's be exciting. That sort of thing. That's Venus and sun in Sagittarius would be more jovial, right? And Venus is more, the acquiring of things. It's fun, and this is the transit we're talking about. But Venus is that, and then it comes to a space of Capricorn. It's like, I want to take inventory of all the things that I actually just went crazy on. Like take inventory of what things maybe I should look at more and have balanced a little bit more. So it's a shift, I think, from Sagittarius to Capricorn's a rather dramatic shift, but it's a big one.
Yeah. So I think I don't have any proof of this because I just kind of thought of it. But when we had the shift, it used to be like the focus on Christmas used to be like the last minute gifts, the last minute shopping.
Yes.
I think they must have had some astrologer at least give some input on that. Actually, now it's kind of focused more towards the front end, like the Black Friday and stuff.
Yes.
So
and that's when
you get the sun's in Sagittarius.
Yep.
Versus the few days before Christmas, the sun's in Capricorn. So they try to get people when they're a little more likely to blow the big bucks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's interesting. Okay, so when we move on to November 12th. November 12th, we have Mercury square Saturn, and this is in Sagittarius and Pisces. Of course, Mercury is moving quickly at 12 degrees Sagittarius and Pisces. So Mercury moves quickly, but Mercury is going to come back to this spot, I believe, when it goes retrograde. I'd actually have to double check on that one. But Mercury squaring Saturn, there's serious thought there. I think this is where you make lists of cicadas. And if you don't know that, go to our like spring video and see what that means. Yeah. But what were you going to say?
And you know what? We never got the cicada apocalypse here, but you know what we did? We got grasshoppers and like the last few weeks, the mayflies. There was like millions of them. So
what are they?
Mayflies.
They
look like mosquitoes.
Oh gosh.
Maybe they look like mosquitoes, but they're not. They're actually very gentle. Like they don't bite or anything, but they look like mosquitoes, kind of. But they're. We just had like millions of them like a couple weeks ago. Like you walk through the grass and like 50 of them jump up. And grasshoppers. We had tons of grasshoppers this year. I only saw one cicada the whole summer, one or two.
Do the grasshoppers do the same things as the cicadas? Because sometimes I see like a ton of grasshoppers and sometimes I see none. So I don't really know,
I don't know. I don't know what the deal was because like last year we had tons of praying mantises, and this year I only saw a couple. So I don't know if the grass. I don't know if the grasshoppers uh, pushed out the praying mantises or what they did. But I saw a lot more grasshoppers. And does anybody even care what I'm talking about at this point?
Grasshoppers. I'll be people watching, so maybe. But that's kind of funny. I actually, and Beth says something. She says they're more northern than southern. We do have cicadas here, but not the same. They're different, something different. But anyway, so Mercury square Saturn. What are you thinking about Mercury square Saturn in Sagittarius and Pisces? Tell me.
So Mercury square Saturn is going to be a more serious thought. Like I'm trying to keep an eye on the violence here. It seems to be messing with stuff.
The violence.
The violence. So too, I can't help but think that this maybe has something to do with the election, because this is just a week after the election, and it's still a week before Pluto leaves Capricorn. So to me, Mercury square Saturn is a change of events. And it can also be, like feeling somber about something.
Yeah, like the mind is more somber. It makes sense because there's this seriousness to it that Saturn brings to the table.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also good for making lists.
I was gonna say that's why you make lists, right? And I will tell you, Andrew says he heard about the Sagittarius square, and that's why he's here for that and the grasshoppers.
Yeah.
So your grasshopper communication was appreciated. Thanks, Andrew. Oh, funny. So, okay, after what is that?
I said they're going to ban us from here.
They're going to be like, you two people talk about grasshoppers and astrology. We just can't.
No insect discussions on YouTube.
We're done with this. We're done. That's hysterical. That's funny. Okay, so then we move on to November 15th, and this is when it starts to get fun, okay? November 15th, we have our wonderful full moon. The full moon is in Taurus, of course, so we have the sun in Scorpio, full moon in Taurus. This is at 24 degrees Taurus. So 24 degrees Taurus, isn't this where Algol is? Or no, Algol's at 27, if I'm not mistaken, I think. But anyway,
yes, I think that's
right. What do you feel about the full moon in Taurus, what it's going to bring to us here? And I know it's not the only thing that's going to be fun in the middle of the month here, but this is the first. We're leading up.
Yeah. So here's kind of my deal on like the full moons and stuff. Like the ones in the fixed signs tend to be maybe more intense feeling because there's a little bit of a feeling of make or break or gridlock. The full moons in immutable signs tend to be more of a feeling of chaos because they're mutable and things tend to feel like they get unwound. And then the full moons in the cardinal signs tend to be like a crisis in action. Like it takes something that needs some initiative or a kickstart or something. Because like the cardinal signs are initiators. The fixed signs are like stubborn and kind of plodding, but they're good at finishing things. The mutable signs are adaptable to change, but sometimes they get blown off course too easy because they're too easy to get, blown with the wind, so to speak. So I think the Scorpio Taurus full moon is usually one of the most intense, most years anyways. That's one of the most intense ones. Now, at this point, I think Uranus is at like 26, high
Mm-hmm.
25s of Taurus. So this full moon, the moon's going to be conjunct Uranus. So I think there's probably going to be a lot of like tension and maybe like I don't see anxiety as like a fixed sign thing that much. I
Mm-hmm.
see anxiety where it's like a mutable thing. Just because the
Mm-hmm.
like Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, Sag tend to be uh, the most mentally, you know, out of the three, not dualities. I forget what they're called. Um,
Modalities.
Modalities. Thank you. um, but usually there's some kind of resistance or grit because the full moon is when the sun and the moon are opposite. So and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so you see the day after is the exact Sun Uranus opposition. So I think there's uh, yeah, there'll be some kind of force that you'll encounter that you'll have to deal with. It's kind of how the fixed sign full moons play out, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
even the normal with Uranus conjunct the full moon. So I'd expect things to be feeling. I expect the energy level to be pretty high at that point, and that's
Right.
also what the last 2.5 days of Pluto in Capricorn.
Yeah, that's a good point because then, I mean, also Uranus is right at that end degrees as well. But it is going retrograde, but it's that has end degrees of Taurus, so it's connecting with Neptune and Pluto. So,
Yeah.
and I mean, Uranus connecting with the moon can make us feel a little anxious. I know that's not a very. I mean, don't you think
That's
even in
not a
Earth signs maybe not?
Yeah, no, I'd say that's probably the energy level's probably at high at that point.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that is the November 16th. We have a lot of fun on the 18th. We
And
skip a couple of days. Oh, go ahead.
no, yeah, just the two like that. The Sun Uranus opposition of itself is like surprising events, surprising outcomes, quick changes of um, results.
Interesting. I was just going to ask you if you think that's going to have any kind of effect on what happened earlier in the month. So interesting.
Oh,
Wonder.
I would say there's a good chance that the uh, the Mercury Saturn squares and the full moon and the Sun Uranus opposition, I'd say there's a pretty good chance that all those will. I think there's going to be a lot of backing and forthing after November 5th. There's going to be challenges and lawsuits, and regardless of which side wins, I regardless of who wins, I think there's going to be a lot of
Mm-hmm.
wanting to rehash what exactly happened, especially up through November 19th. After that, I'm not quite sure
Mm.
if it's going to end on November 19th or not. I kind of feel like it's not really going to end at that point.
Well, let's cover
But
the
we'll get
8th.
there.
Yes, let's cover the 18th and we'll get to the 19th because the 19th is a big day. The 18th is also a big day. We have Mercury opposite Jupiter, Sun trine Neptune. At least these are not, oh my gosh days. But they are there. There's is that the only thing that I got? Yeah, Mercury opposite Jupiter, Sun trine Neptune. At least those aren't. But the Sun trine Neptune can make, I think I would think that would be more not necessarily seeing things very clearly. There'd be a feeling of, there could be a feeling of the veil being covered over the eyes. Wouldn't you think that would be something like that?
Yeah.
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 And
So how I kind of look at the Mercury Jupiter things is Mercury rules Gemini and what did I do there? So these, hold on, I'm gonna start that part over again. So Mercury and Jupiter are in mutual reception because Mercury rules Gemini, Jupiter rules Sag. They're in the opposite. So if you've run across the term mutual reception, that's what that means when two planets that are aspecting each other are in the sign that the other one rules.
And so that's a good
thing,
right?
Well, it can be added, communication or whatnot. But Mercury and Jupiter kind of because like Gemini and Sag are opposites. So I do see that there's kind of a little bit of conflict ingrained there, and I did not put a spotlight on myself. It's just the sun is breaking through the cloud. Now I have a line on my head. So
you need your mask on. But it's hard to hear with a mask on, so maybe not.
Oh God.
It's a spotlight. They're putting it on for you.
Like, this angelic deity that the universe was telling me I was right on something. Yes. It was just the sun deciding to show through the clouds for a second. So I just closed the curtains. What are we even talking about? Mercury opposite Jupiter.
Yes, Mercury opposite Jupiter. And I mean, those are the two. Yeah.
So Mercury, yeah, so they're in mutual reception. So Mercury is the minutia. It's the little stuff, the little details. Jupiter is a big picture planet. So there has to be Mercury and Jupiter don't naturally communicate well because Mercury is worried about the minutia and Jupiter is worried about the big picture. Now, since these planets are in mutual reception, meaning they're in the sign that the other one rules, maybe this could be a light bulb moment where like maybe people figure some things out. Maybe even regarding the November 5th thing, maybe there's some light shed on things. And then mix that with the Sun Neptune trine in Scorpio Pisces, where that can be where there maybe is some spiritual clarification on things, maybe. So maybe, and two, I think, and kind of the reason why I say that is like we're in the final test. At that point, we are like less than 24 hours. So the last day of our lifetime with Pluto and Capricorn. And we have a Mercury Jupiter opposition, a mutual reception, and a Sun Neptune trine. So maybe there's a realization or some reflection that maybe everyone, well, I'm going to have to wordsmith this one, maybe everyone in positions of power or elected officials, maybe a lot of them are not really worried about what's best for the common person. maybe they're kind of in it for themselves. And that goes for both parties.
Interesting.
Maybe. I mean, Sun trine Neptune could be deception also. And that Mercury opposite Jupiter could be confusion. But I think there's at least a chance there where like some things stick that maybe some people have had a hard time, concepts people have had a hard time grasping or something. I'm just ruining this all now. Why don't you talk for a minute?
I know. So, the thing of it is that we kind of get stuck with our mindset sometimes, and we don't want to change, whether we're seeing things for reasons we maybe should change, or not. And we get stuck. It's like almost it's a belief system. We get stuck in that belief system, and we don't want to shift it because of that whatever reason. And maybe this is an opportunity for opening up and looking at things from what they really are, as opposed to what you think they are or what you thought they were, because there's no shame in changing your mind about something too. I think that's an important part of it. I think a lot of people don't want to necessarily change, so they get stuck in it. What do they call that? Cognitive dissonance, where it's just like, I can't see that, and maybe that's an opportunity to have something shift for people. I know it's going to be a lot of chaos mentally, collectively, no matter what way it swings. I think a lot of people are going to be angry, but I also have seen a lot of people shift and awaken to things that they thought were not possible. And that's the reason why I started saying this, is because I feel like there's been a lot of people that have looked at things differently when they wouldn't have before, so I think that's a good thing. And maybe that's what we're leading up to, which is on the following day, is that we do have Pluto moving signs and moving into the sign of Aquarius for the next 20 years or something. And that could be, the awakening that we're seeing on some level. Do you see that around you? People that are kind of like, we're always one direction, and then just looking at it and saying, oh, things aren't maybe what I thought they were, or they've changed and they're not what they used to be, and shifting gears themselves.
I mean, I do see that. Probably, to be honest, probably not the numbers I'd like to see of that. But I think, there's different evolutionary states. So like everyone isn't meant to figure everything out every lifetime. There may be some people that are just figuring, their purpose of this lifetime is to figure out how to sustain themselves, or how to love another person, or how to be self-reliant, or a million other things. Maybe everyone isn't maybe here to figure out everything all the time. So I think that's maybe where, as much as even I can be judgmental at times on things, I try to remember that, like, maybe this person doesn't really give a shit about that, and maybe not supposed to at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's got to be good enough.
Yeah, that's true too. Wow. So
yeah, so we got 20. So that's the official. So another oddity is, so this will be the third entrance of Pluto into Aquarius. This will be the third time Pluto's entered Aquarius.
In the last year, right?
Like year and a half. I think March of, God, what year is this? I think March of last year was the first entrance.
I can look.
Then I think it was
Aquarius.
March of
I know it is.
2023.
It has affected me a lot because I have my sun and my midhaven in Aquarius at 0 and 1 degrees. Let's see. So September 1
So
was that,
so
is that
March
right?
of 2023, and then late January of 2024 was the second entrance of Pluto into Aquarius, and then this will be the third one, the third and final Jeopardy round.
Oh,
But I would say, like, if people are gonna, if you're going to figure stuff out, I would say now's the time. Like, I would say, I mean, people can can awaken at any time or whatnot. But I'd say, like, if you're gonna figure stuff out, like, this is an opportune time. It's a very fated, destined time, I think.
I agree with that. What are you predicting or thinking there's going to be with Pluto in Aquarius? Like, what are you expecting to see from our global societal kind of thing? What are you anticipating? I mean, we've already got the AI going on, and I've had a few friends recently like have these crazy moments of like, oh my god, and learn about what AI is all about, and kind of freak out about that. I've also had there's also an interesting thing that the government has done, which I think is interesting, and I'll bring this up because I think this is it's worthy of bringing up. So the government has a registry that they're creating. They started it in 2021. They decided they put it into law. The registry is any business owner that owns a smaller company under a certain amount of employees and under a large sum of money. They have to register their business with this organization. It's BOI is the acronym for it. And their reasoning is they want to keep people from laundering money. And I think that's great. Of course, we don't want people laundering money. We don't want people doing illegal things. However, these big businesses that have certain amount of employees, I don't know the numbers, so I'm not going to pretend that I do, but you can look it up yourself, that they don't have to say who runs the business. It's because they're wanting to know the people that are responsible for the business so they can keep better track of them. It makes me think of Big Brother watching you even more, But anybody that owns an LLC, anybody that owns a corporation, any kind of smaller business has to do this. The fine, if you do not, is like $591 a day if you do not register by January 1st, 2024. And then they will put your ass in jail. Like, is that crazy to you if you do not within a certain amount of time? And this is verifiable. I'll put a link in the description because it is kind of crazy to look at it, to the actual government website, but you can look it up yourself. And I feel like this is really, really overreach, and I know this doesn't necessarily have to do with Pluto into Aquarius. And, I have a business and, many people do, but, why do we have to have the government in our stuff? That seems like overreach to me. It seems like it's another list. I mean, I pay my taxes. I do the things that everybody has to do in their life. Why do they have to have a list of owners so they can, keep tabs on us? I don't think that's fair. I think that's really unfair. And I hope that with Pluto moving into Aquarius, with these changes of our government changing, I think it could go one way where it's more of that, because this was a Biden-Harris thing that came out, which I'm not a fan of overreach like this. I'll just say that. I'm also not a fan of the idea of equity and our not having a merit society is unfair to me. And what I mean by that, equity, I believe everybody should be taken care of. I think that's important for us as human beings to take care of one another. However, I don't feel like it's fair if I work my ass off and you sit down and we get the same check at the end of the week. That's not fair. If I'm working my ass off, I should get something for that. You know, I don't think that's fair. To me, that's communism. I mean, I'm not a communist. I don't believe in communism. I think that's unfair and wrong. I don't think governments need to be owning us. That's not our religion, because communism is a state religion, basically. You have to believe in what they do. And I'm fearful for our government to shift in a different way that is away from the republic that it is. It really is kind of terrifying to me. But I think that's important for people to know and people to hear about, because I don't think people talk about that enough. I think they talk about these little things that might be important to them, and that's fine, because everybody has something that's important to them. Everybody has, you know, oh, well, abortion rights, that's important to them, or, oh, you know, this is important to them. But thinking of the overall overreach of things, you give them a little bit, they take 20 miles, you know, like, and before you know it, they're sitting next to you at the dinner table. And, you know, like, who wants that? Like, seriously, who wants that in their life? I mean, I'd rather they just stay out of my life, let me pay my taxes and leave me alone, you know, let me be a human. And, you know, I get it. Taxes are important because they create society to make society work. And I understand that. But you know, when they go to funding things that are nothing of my business, like wars overseas, I'm not on board with that. Like, I have issues with that. I could stand on my soapbox here all day long and talk about it, but how is that fair? When we have people starving in our country or not homed in our country, and we're sending money to governments overseas, how is that fair? Just think about that for a minute. How is that fair? And the one good thing that I did like about Trump when he was in office, because he was in office for 4 years, so people say, oh, he's going to come in and do this and that. Well, he would have done that 4 years ago if he did. That's such a weak argument that people have that I think it's a null and void point. You should really think about, well, what did he do? Now let's think about what she did, what she's done for our government while she's there. Our freaking border is crazy. We have like so many people that have come into the country. And I have so many friends and people I love and know that have worked their butts off to be able to get into the country legally. How is that fair to those people? How is that fair? I think it's completely unfair. I think it's completely unconstitutional. And now what they do with these immigrants is they go and put them in states in which are swing states, the ones that aren't sure if they're Republican or Democratic. And so those people will vote for the people that put them there. I mean, if you can't see that, are we off YouTube yet? Have we gotten fired? Like, I think I just destroyed everything. But you know what? If you can't see it, then open your eyes and look, because honestly, that's what's going on. And it's really sad. It's really sad and scary, because I think we live in the best country. That's what I think we live in the best. Somebody said to me when I was talking about this, a friend of mine, well, why don't you go live in, and I'm like, you know what? I think we live in the best country. The problem is that, you know, it's getting screwed up by all these things that are unconstitutional. That BOI thing, unconstitutional. Do I have to do it as a business owner? Absolutely. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to, like, you know, same reason I pay my taxes. It's part of collectively helping, but I don't want to pay my taxes, even though I will, for it to go over to, you know, support some war that I don't agree with. Like, I just don't. And I'm not going to. So there you go. I'm off my soapbox now. And yeah, honestly, I don't care about conservative, Republican, Democratic, progressive. I don't really give a shit about your labels. You can stuff your labels for all I care about. I look at policy and see who's going to be able to help us as a collective, not just me personally, but as a collective. And, you know, the answer is very clear to me who that would be. The last 4 years have been astronomically more expensive than they were the 4 years prior to that. And that is one part that is a big part of every single person's life. All right, I'm done. I'm really done with the soapbox. It's all yours, Mark.
Yeah, no, I mean, like like with the equity thing, I think I can see there being a complaint that some people have more opportunities than others. And I think
Right.
that's maybe something they can work on getting fit. You'll, there is nothing you will ever do to get equity.
No,
you
it's
get,
still
you
not
can
happen.
give the same amount of money to 10 white people or to 10 black people or what,
10
and
Spanish
that
people, 10 Chinese people, it doesn't matter. They're
right.
just right.
People are different. They have different value systems, even within their own groups, their own
Within their own groups,
religious,
right? Mhm.
racial, whatever groups. You're never going. There's nothing you can possibly do to make everyone end up with the same amount of money. It's a completely unattainable goal.
So here's the thing I
It
would
can't
like to
be
say
done.
about equity for that matter. If you want to talk about equity, or politicians want to come out and say equity, or they want to say, oh, she's a white girl, she's privileged. Well, guess what? Actually, I mean, I might be a white female, but I'm a minority where I live. I've always been a minority where I live. It's worse and worse over time. Not worse, because that makes it sound bad. I don't care that I'm a minority. I think it's kind of cool that there's all these different cultures in my area. But I didn't have the privilege that people might assume just because you're a certain color. That really bothers me, because I was actually, and people want to say racism isn't something that, people can have. It's only white people against black people or something. I disagree with that too, because I went to a school, my high school, I was the only white girl in class of all my classes, even the teachers. Didn't bother me, but do you know how much I got picked on when I was in high school? It was not a pretty thing. Not all of my classes, all of my, it's just where I lived. It's just what, actually, it wasn't where I lived. I bused myself into that area because they had a performing arts part to that school. I wanted to do that. But, point being is that, it can happen from anyone to anyone, like I don't agree with, and I also don't agree with treating people unfairly and unlovingly. I think we should take care of people that are not able to take care of themselves. We should take care of the people that need the help. But the person that's just being lazy, I don't want to work, so the person that's being lazy can have a check at the end of the day. They should just go ahead and work too. We should all contribute to something better than what we have. So I'm super hopeful that our society will kind of come to realization that our founding forefathers had something good to put out there. A society on merit is important. And I think that, that affects all of us. I've seen things where it's, DEI stuff where the person failed because they were a DEI hire, and they end up being, screwing the company over because they don't have the ability to actually make the company do well. And it's really sad when that happens, because, it didn't have to be that way. If they would have lifted up the person and taught them to be the person that needs that role, then that would have been a different story. But they don't do that. It's just like, we're going to hire you because you're XYZ instead of because your merit is this. It's just, that's something that makes me, my blood boil. Can you tell? I'm hopeful that I'm really hopeful that we collectively start getting out of this suppression, or you're born into this body and in this home and this city or whatever, and you're privileged, or you're born in this city and this body with a different color skin and you're underprivileged. I hope that we can get to where we all can meet in the center and lift each other up, as opposed to saying just because you're this or you're that, you are bad, or you're a weak. Because no, you're not weak just because you're born in a certain, in a certain body and in a certain place. No way. That's not cool. My grandchildren are mixed race. Like half of my family is mixed race. Like I have no racism problems at all in myself. I think we should, and I don't think that my grandbabies that were born are also underprivileged because they are mixed race. I think that's insane. I think they're the most perfect little grandbabies ever, and I think that's the way we need to look at life, because if we don't, then we're really feeding into this segregation that they're creating, society is creating for us to be segregated by. I think that's important to think about it. Yeah. I thank you, Bet, too, because I see you're saying we should celebrate our differences. I think we should too. I think the culture and the differences of people is amazing. I love that I live down in South Florida, where there's so many different types of cultures and people from all over the world. It's a hodgepodge of the world. But I think that's an important thing. We need to remember to love people as they are, and not to victimize them just because they're born in a certain way, or make them bad people just because they're born in a certain way or a certain culture. I think that's important.
Yeah,
I have
no,
you
I
off
agree.
now.
Yeah, you're,
Yes.
yeah. So I think somebody, I can't remember who it was. Somebody wrote a really good article, an astrology article, about when Pluto was going into Aquarius the first time, and they used Frankenstein's monster as kind of their analogy, like Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein came out the last time. I hope I'm not screwing this up. Came out the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, and that was like one of the first like horror novels ever. And so I think, Frankenstein's monster, but since we're on Halloween, anyways, it was an amalgamation of different pieces and parts of different bodies and stuff they dug up that they put together to make a
A
this
crazy
new kind
Frankenstein.
of yeah. So it's like, I kind of think that's what we're going to get out of Pluto and Aquarius. It's Aquarius, so I don't think we know exactly what we're going to get. It's probably going to be some kind of weird deviation of what our brains would naturally think it's going to be. So I think it's going to be hard for either one side or anything to like steamroll everyone else. I think what's going to happen anyway, because like Aquarius rules like groups and organizations and things. I think we're going to see a lot of new groups and organizations, to where like people are so. I guess I have too many thoughts at once here. So I think part of the Pluto and Capricorn entering Aquarius, I think what we're kind of seeing is um, the death of celebrity on one level.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, come on.
and
Now
maybe
look what
some of this,
recently happened.
yeah, maybe some of this is my age, is just seeing so many like famous people and stuff die. But I think a lot of celebrities have come out maybe too publicly on their stances on things, and are um, getting a lot of quick comeuppance on
Mm-hmm.
you know on their viewpoints on some things. So I'm hoping part of this is people work more in smaller groups in their areas and worry less about what the celebrities or the government of Washington D.C. or whatever does. I'm hoping that people are more interested in. Um,
How can I grow a tomato garden with my neighbors or something? I mean, it
exactly.
doesn't have to
A
be that, but
local,
I'm just giving an example. Yeah.
right. I think like a local farmers market is a great example of Pluto and Aquarius.
Yes. People coming together in an area to try to better and help themselves. And the idea of Aquarius being altruistic, I can see that. I can see where there is this, this is for the collective. I'm not saying they're sacrificing themselves. I have a lot of Aquarius planets. I can speak for Aquarians. in that, on that level. But I feel like they want to collectively see things, lift and grow, and maybe be a little different than, what the standard, old fashioned way was. That's fine too. But I think that old fashioned way has come to the point where we are right now, where we're not doing great. The people that have been in power all this time have not really helped us. They've been lining their pockets with lots of money. That has happened. They've all made themselves pretty wealthy, but what have they really done for you? And hopefully that Pluto in Aquarius will help us to kind of see that should shift and be more, local people helping local people, states helping states, and so on and so forth. My grandmother used to say to me, charity starts at home. And the idea of charity starts at home for me is always like, if my family's eating, great, maybe I can help the world, or help my neighbor, but
Right.
if I'm not, if someone in my family isn't eating, I'll take care of them. And then if I need to help my neighbor, I will help my neighbor. But like going out into the world and just being the savior, really think about that. That's money right there, and follow the money. You'll have your answer right there. The money is really what it's all about. And that's the sad part about our collective world that we live in this moment, is it is governed by money. And one more thing I want to say to you about the idea of those famous people coming out and saying blah, 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 blah. I think that is the most ridiculous stuff I've ever heard of in my life. Do you know why? And it's just so simple. You're just going to be like, wow. Because they're freaking paid actors. They're paid actors. If you can't see a paid actor is like, oh, you want me to vote for you or talk about this for you because of this? Sure, they get the money. They're going to be very convincing. Come on, man. Think about it. Think about that. So all those paid actors saying this and that, don't listen to them. listen to what's in your heart. Listen to what feels correct for you. Don't listen to the negative stuff that is talking about things being things being in ways they're not, because I think that's also a big part of it. Yeah, Eminem, that's a good point. That Eminem cracks me up.
Yeah.
Like, I used to like him until he started being a not likable person. I'm from Michigan, so.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. Well, that's good. That's good that you have people that will come together with you, Bet, because I think that's important. I think we all need to do that for ourselves, is like help each other out. Like, don't lean onto the government. The government isn't your friend. So they have their place, but they are not there to help you in that way.
Right.
It's my own personal opinion.
Yeah, that's correct.
So I've totally derailed us from the conversation of the planets. So we can go back to that. But I needed to speak about this because I thought this was important. And what better way to do it than when you're dressed up like Cheshire Cat? Because honestly, we are all mad, including myself. But you know what? I do know that I have a good heart and I love humans. I love humanity. And I really do want to see us move into a place of not being controlled by Big Brother. That's my own personal view. So after Pluto moves into Aquarius on November 21st, we have the sun moving into Sagittarius and making a sextile to Pluto. So that's at 0, Sagittarius and Aquarius. That's kind of further activating the Pluto energy moving into Aquarius. So what are you feeling about the sun sextile Pluto? Is it going to make us feel a little bit better about the shift?
So I think, right. Like, I think by then, whether or not everything with the election is settled or not, I think usually after personally, I love Sun in Scorpio. I could do like 10 months of Sun in Scorpio, but like, I get it where people are exhausted at the end of it. Like, I totally understand it.
Capricorn, it's heavy.
Right. And so I think just most years, even when the sun enters Sag, and then this, Pluto has changed signs. I think by by the afternoon of November 21st, I think even if everything's not settled, I do think that people are at least a little bit ready to start moving forward. And I think things do feel lighter at that point because too, that's about like a week from Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And any planet making aspects to Pluto is usually about like making change,
That's a good
or,
point.
or about transforming something. So I think by November 21st, there, like later in the afternoon, I think things do feel like we have a little more of a grasp on things, or
Mm-hmm.
like things feel a little bit easier going at that point.
Less
Because just
wine.
having the Sun and Pluto both changing signs there within like 2 days.
Right, right. And then aspecting each other, of course. So there's this yeah, that whole thing. Okay. Um, and we move on and we move to November 22nd. November 22nd, we have Venus sextile Saturn, and this is in the Capricorn Pisces energy. This is like, there's quite a bit of Capricorn energy going on here, or release of Capricorn energy in November. Venus sextile Saturn, maybe taking inventory of your list.
Yes.
I don't know. No, that's Mercury. What am I saying? Venus is.
So Venus. So Venus. Right. So Venus is resources, and Saturn is accountability. So I think that's no. While Capricorn and Pisces are sextile, I think they're very different. And so what's kind of interesting there is while Pisces or Saturn is in Pisces, but Saturn is the natural ruler of Capricorn. So and then Venus is in Capricorn. So I think there is maybe a better play than normal between those two, and I think that I think that Venus sextile Saturn, I think, is a good positive way to move forward. You take inventory of things, check your lists, and I think that's a good, mixed with still the, Sun is still sextile Pluto because that was just the day before. So I think those are two good, like mild aspects that aren't overwhelming to where you can start, pushing things forward, making progress.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully that will help too. And that's the shift when the sun moves into the different signs into Sagittarius. So, I mean, it did the day before, but there's a progression of change in that sense in the 21st, 22nd.
Yeah. And that's just barely 12 hours past that. So
right. And then when we move to the 25th, Mercury makes our beautiful station retrograde, and that is like awesome. So are you excited about that?
I'm never excited about Mercury retrograde.
I think.
Yeah, especially. Yeah, especially 22 Sag is a rough one for me. I've got that natal Uranus Pluto conjunction in Virgo.
Oh
so
yeah.
So I like everybody. Like I know that when things are like stationing or moving over those 19 to 22 degrees of the mutable signs, I know that's going to be very hectic and chaotic. So this is probably a good reminder that I need to have everything of importance done by like November 21st, like by time Sun moves into Sag. So that was kind of a personal note for myself to remember.
Yeah. But so about the Mercury retrograde, what is there a specific, theme that you're thinking of for this particular aspect or this particular transit that's going on? And Mercury stays retrograde till what? Like probably middle of, I didn't even look, but middle of
it's
December.
Probably, middle of December.
Mm-hmm.
Like December 14th is when Mercury goes direct. So like 10 days before Christmas.
Save buying your electronics until before or after.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do not buy your electronics during the Mercury retrograde.
It's better not to.
Yeah. So again, Mercury being one of the ruling Gemini, which is the opposite of Sag. Again, so that's kind of a Mercury is minutia, Sag is big picture. So to me, that's kind of getting the minutia and the big picture to communicate with each other. And then, of course, the Mercury retrograde is where you're supposed to be inward or reflecting on things, and a little less of the extroverting, which I'm sure will make the Sages angry, me saying that. But that's how it rolls. But look, once Mercury goes direct again, you'll get a whole new. Mercury's going to turn direct at 6 degrees Sag, so you're kind of getting 2 Mercury and Sag transits in a row. So look at it that way. So that period there, starting November 25th, that's the time to correct the actions for the previous 2 weeks.
Interesting. Also, so Mercury doesn't even leave Sagittarius when it's in its retrograde phase. It just goes to 6 Sag. That makes sense. Yeah. So anybody that has planets in the early, not the very beginning, but pretty much most of Sagittarius, except the very end, is going to be really affected by the Mercury retrograde. Yeah, that'll be fun. Just before Christmas.
The planets at between 6 and 22 Sag are the ones that'll get the 3 hits off of the Mercury retrograde.
Interesting. I think my Neptune is in there somewhere. All right. So, and then on the 27th, we have, this is the last aspect for this month that we're going to talk about, is Sun trine Mars. And that is at the beginning of Sag and beginning of Leo. Nice little trine there. What are you feeling about Sun trine Mars?
So Sun trine Mars. So Mars rules Aries and the Sun rules Leo. So you've got 2 planets ruled by fire signs making a trine in fire signs. So that should be, I think, after the heaviness of the end of Pluto and Capricorn and the Taurus full moon and the election stuff, I think this should breathe some vitality back into people. Sun trine Mars and fire signs should this should boost people's energy levels back up, even with the Mercury retrograde. But I think that'll boost people's energy level a good bit. And usually, Sun trine Mars has good vitality to it.
And is that right? Oh yeah, that's the day before Thanksgiving. Is that the day before Thanksgiving? It's on the 28th this month.
Think so.
So yeah, it's the last. Is it the last or the 4th? Do you know what I mean? The last or the 4th Thursday? I don't know. I don't remember how the rules go.
Thanksgiving is.
Oh,
The
well, it's
28th this year.
Yeah, it is the 28th. So it's a day before. So hopefully that'll make a nice
Yeah,
for
that
the
should.
celebration. Mm-hmm.
Although the moon is in Scorpio for Thanksgiving, but that should maybe that'll yeah, maybe that'll calm things down a little bit.
That'll make wonderful family dinners.
Yeah, I'm sure Mercury retrograde in Sag won't lead to any arguments.
Yes, not at all, not even slightly. Oh my gosh. Well, we made it through. What else do you have to tell us to wind up the entirety of November? Anything?
I would say don't get too wound up in the initial election results, whichever side you're like. I'd say this is, and even there's a good chance that all of that there's continual changes on up through into 2020, like early in 2025. So I'd say, focus on the things you can control in your immediate environment. I think there's going to be a lot of sorting out afterwards that happens. We're really in uncharted territory at this point. I mean, Pluto's making its, third ingress into Aquarius. Uranus, Neptune are both in the late degrees of the signs they're in. Saturn next year, Saturn's going to catch up, and it's going to be in the end of Pisces by late next year. So I mean, we're obviously in a transition process, and we're probably not. We'll get some hints next year of where things are going, but it's probably going to be like spring of 2026 before we really have a good idea of like where we're heading on things. So I'd say do what you can to secure your immediate environment, probably is. And that the things that are bigger than you that you're not going to change, you're not going to be able to change those.
That's a good point.
So divert your energy into things that you can influence or change.
Yeah,
and
that's always a good idea. I agree. That's always a good idea. I think that's an important part to it too, looking at what you can change, what you can do to help the people around you, and to be a good person yourself. I mean, who doesn't want to do that?
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this is great. This was fun. And yeah. This will be an interesting month. I look forward to having December to talk about, and that will mark a year of us doing these every month. That's fun. We used to do these every year and talk about the entire year, or try to at least. But monthly, it's fun. Yeah. So very cool.
Yeah. And maybe even like next year we can do the monthly ones next year, but maybe we can do a year preview thing too for next year.
That's a good idea.
Just look at the like
the main
handful of the really big things for an overview, and then do the monthly things maybe after.
That's a good idea too. The monthly things people seem to like resonate with and listen to, but definitely
I think it's more digestible.
Yeah, because you think of the whole year at one time, it's a lot. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching us, and we will see you on the next one. And I don't even know how to turn this off, so we're going to stay here forever. I'm just kidding. I think end stream is probably the right button. Happy Halloween. I'm going to go trick-or-treating this tonight with young kids, so I'm going to have fun. You're going to hand out candy, Mark?
No, we don't have trick or treat. We're very rural. They
Mm.
actually had, because we're supposed to have rain tonight for like the
Oh,
sixth Halloween in a row. So they actually did the local thing last night. They moved it up because it was nice out last night. So I don't know if it's really going to rain or not, but well, at least they had the thing in town yesterday that everybody took their kids to. But yeah, we've not had a single trick or treater out here. We've been out here 4 years.
mm. Wow. Wow. Well, I'll have fun for you because there's usually a party in the streets. And
Yes, eat some
saw my
candy for me.
neighbors across the street and down, they also always have like a haunted house. So that's fun to take the kids into if they're not screaming and
Oh,
rebelling.
no,
Yep.
that would be fun. That would be fun.
Yeah. All right. Have a great one, everybody. We'll see you next month.
Okay, we'll see you next
Bye.
time. Bye.